Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Paper Rose Studio's Poinsettia Garden collection. There are 3 6x6 paper collections that all coordinate together, and this is also available in the 12x12 size, but I'll be using the 6x6 size. To go along with the original Poinsettia Garden collection, we have the basics and also watercolors. And each of these paper packs include 18 double-sided pattern papers, 3 each of 12 designs. If you've never used Paper Rose Studio's papers before, the quality is amazing. It's a nice sturdy cardstock. It's printed on 200 GSM paper, and it does have a slight gloss finish. I'll flip through the papers quickly so you can get an idea of what's included. Lots of beautiful poinsettia designs. I love the colors, that nice bold red with the green and the white and black. I think it adds a beautiful contrast and a very elegant look to your cards. And there is one sheet of cut aparts, although you can always use the opposite side if you don't want to cut out any images. With 3 of each design, it's easy to make multiples of the same card, and that's something I love to do. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I will be using some card sketches for inspiration. This first one is from MFT. It's number 340. And if you are interested in any of the card sketches I show in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For this card, I selected a very soft green watercolor pattern for the background, added a strip of red gingham paper on the left side. I'm layering everything on some dark green cardstock. Then using a stitch circle die from Paper Rose, I cut out this beautiful poinsettia pattern paper. I did trim the very bottom of the circle so it has this nice semicircle design. Layered it on a dark green circle die cut, then trimmed off the bottom so it matches that semicircle design. For sentiment on the card, I'm using Paper Rose's Crisp Christmas Sentiment Sheets. This is wishing you a wonderful Christmas. I like how they have the black and also the white version of the sentiments. I cut a fishtail on the right side. Before adhering it to my card, I will put some scrap cardstock pieces underneath that sentiment, just on the very right and left side. Then I'll adhere it in place using some liquid adhesive. After adding that first small scrap piece of cardstock, I laid it on my card, and I'm using my fingers to feel if the 2 sides dip down. That way I know if I need to add another layer. And I decided one more layer was necessary. Then I'll put liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to the lower area of that semicircle. For embellishments on my card, I'm using some silver sequins. I'll add 2 in the upper right-hand corner and 3 around the sentiment, using 3 different sizes of sequins. I am using an embellishment wand to pick up those sequins, adding just a small drop of Barely Art liquid adhesive, then pressing the sequins in place. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Most of my card designs in this video are fairly simple. I really wanted to focus on the beautiful pattern paper. Now moving on to card design number 2. I selected this beautiful pattern paper that has a lovely floral arrangement in the lower right hand corner, and on that same sheet there's another small arrangement in the upper left hand corner. But I trimmed it down so I could fit just that one floral arrangement on this card. I'm adding a strip of the green and white polka dot paper to the very top, layering everything on some dark green cardstock. Then using that same green cardstock, I did cut a narrow strip to put between the 2 pattern papers. And I adhered that in place using some double-sided adhesive. For a sentiment on my card, I stamped out Christmas Blessings, and this is from Paper Rose's Christmas Sentiments 4x6 stamp set. And I'm adding that sentiment inside the layered banner die set. I cut it out from some red cardstock that matches the beautiful bold red color on the pattern paper. I'll adhere the frame of the banner in the upper left-hand corner using some liquid adhesive. Next, I'll add the sentiment piece. Then I'll fill in the flags of the banner with the red cardstock. The layered banner die set also includes a die that goes all around that entire banner so you could have an outline piece, but I decided not to use that this time. Then for embellishments on my card, decided to use some white pearls, putting 3 of them around the sentiment and 2 in the lower right hand corner. So there is my finished card, and again I did make 2 using this design. With such a beautiful floral design, I didn't feel this card needed anything else. For card design number 3, the card sketch is from OWH. This is number 153. This poinsettia image is the leftover from the previous card. I mentioned it had the floral image in the upper left-hand corner. I really wanted to make sure to use both of those beautiful images. So I thought this sketch would be perfect so I could feature it in a square on the card. For the background of the card, I'm using a dark green watercolor pattern paper, adding 2 narrow strips of the red and white pattern paper, layering everything on some dark green cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. Before adhering this floral panel, I will add some scrap cardstock pieces just where it goes above and below the red and white polka dot pattern paper. Then I'll adhere it to the card using some liquid adhesive. For sentiment, I stamped out Merry Christmas, and this is from the same Christmas sentiment stamp set. Before adhering it to my card, I will add all those scrap cardstock pieces and even just a small piece of the pattern paper. Then I'll adhere it in place underneath that beautiful floral arrangement. There are lots of fun Christmas sentiments out there, but sometimes it's good to go with the classic Merry Christmas. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For some of my cards, I decided not to add any bling. That way I have some that are nice and flat, and I won't have to worry about paying additional postage when I mail them in December. For card design number 4, I really wanted to use some of the beautiful floral cut-aparts. On one sheet, there are 12 images, so I trimmed all of those down, and I selected 3 of the images to use on each card. For the background of the card, I'm using some of the red gingham pattern paper, and I am layering it on some white shimmer cardstock. Then I'll add a panel of the coordinating red watercolor paper, add my card front onto a card base. Now I'll add all of those cut apart images, and I will overlap them slightly. I'll add the white floral image in the center and have the 2 red images on both sides. The sentiment I've already stamped out, may the good cheer last throughout the year. And I will cut a fishtail on the right and left side, then I'll adhere it underneath those cut apart images. And this is another card I decided to leave off the bling and keep it nice and flat. After adhering the sentiment in place, I noticed there was just a tiny bit of the white card base showing at the bottom of the card. I know it's not super noticeable, but that kind of thing drives me a little crazy, so I did go and trim that off. So there is my finished card, and I did make 4 using this design. 2 with the red gingham in the background and 2 with some green gingham in the background. For card design number 5, I'm using my favorite card sketch. This is from OWH number 218. I love using this card sketch when I really want to feature some beautiful pattern paper. So of course I chose some of the beautiful poinsettia pattern paper. Layered it on some black cardstock. I'm using some of the light green watercolor paper for the background. Added a strip of the white wood grain paper going across the card. I'll put some ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Before adhering the floral panel, I will add that scrap cardstock piece on just the upper portion, then I'll adhere it in place using some liquid adhesive. For the sentiment, I'm using another cut apart. This is Merry Christmas. Cut a fishtail on the left side. I'll add those scrap cardstock pieces on the left side before adhering it in place. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add some small black sequins in the upper left-hand corner, basically following the design of the card sketch. I'll adhere those in place using some liquid adhesive. I like that these sequins are nice and flat, so I'll still be able to mail a card without paying any additional postage. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I know I do tend to use this card sketch quite a bit, but it's such a great design, I can't help but reach for it again and again. For card design number 6, the card sketch is from MFT. This is number 261. For the background of the card, I chose a pattern paper that has a bunch of words on it. I haven't even tried to read what it says, but I think it's something Christmassy. Then using a stitched square die, I cut out this beautiful poinsettia pattern with the gray background. I'll layer it on some black cardstock. Then for the narrow strip that goes across the card, I'm using some of the red watercolor pattern paper. Put those scrap cardstock pieces on the very right and left side before adhering it in place. And I did cut that red strip a little smaller than what's indicated on the card sketch. I think I cut mine 1 inch instead of 1 1/4 inches. I didn't want to cover up too much of the beautiful floral pattern paper. I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back and add the red strip onto the card. I layered the background on some black cardstock, then I'll layer it again on some dark green cardstock. Sometimes it's fun to add 2 different color cardstock layers to the background. Put my card front onto a card base. Then I'll be using another sentiment cut apart. This is Merry Christmas. And I will add the fishtail and the little arrow on the right side as indicated on the card sketch. I think it adds a really fun design. And when I cut my fishtails by hand, they are not always perfect, and I'm okay with that. I'll adhere the sentiment in place using some liquid adhesive. For the small triangle that's in the upper left-hand corner, I'll use some more of the same dark green cardstock. Just adhere that in place using liquid adhesive. Then to finish up the card, I'll use some more of the black sequins. 2 in the lower left-hand corner and 1 above the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I used the same sentiment, but it is a different font. There's always a really nice variety in the sentiment cut apart packs from Paper Rose. For card design number 7, this is a very simple card design. I have some green and white polka dot paper for the background, and I selected this lovely pattern paper that has rows and rows of flowers and foliage pieces. I trimmed them down to 3 different panels. And instead of adding them directly onto the green and white pattern paper, I'm adhering them on some vellum. And this will add just a little bit of separation from that background paper. I'll put adhesive on the back side, making sure to only put it on the back side of the pattern paper. That way the adhesive won't show through on the vellum. I'll adhere it to my card. Then I'll add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Generally, I like to add a cardstock layer for that background instead of adhering that card front directly onto the card base, but I decided to skip the cardstock layer this time. For the sentiment on my card, I'm using Paper Rose's big black and white sentiment sheets. The floral designs don't really look Christmassy on this card, so I thought it would be fun to make a birthday card instead of a Christmas card. The sentiment is wishing you the happiest of birthdays. And I did pop up the sentiment using some foam dimension. Then to finish up the card, I'll add some more of the black sequins, put 3 of them around the sentiment and 2 in the upper left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. But for the other card, I used a black background pattern paper with those lovely floral and foliage pieces. I also cut the strips just a little bit narrower since the rows weren't quite as far apart. Now moving on to card design number 8, and this is my final card design. I'm using the same pattern paper with the black background, the white flowers, and the foliage pieces. I'll layer it on some dark green cardstock. Then I'll add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I'll set that aside so I can start working on the image. I'm using Paper Rose's Ornament Scene Window die set. This is a beautiful die set. I love the ornament you can create with it. I cut out the main frame of the ornament from some white shimmer cardstock and then again from some silver mirror cardstock. From the silver mirror cardstock piece, I trimmed off the very top portion, glued those two pieces together, and I did put an acrylic block on top for the added weight while I let the glue adhere. If I added the ornament directly onto that pattern paper background, it would really get lost. So instead, I'll be adhering it onto a stitched oval die cut that I cut out of vellum. I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back side and adhere the main portion of the ornament onto the center of the oval. I try to be very light on that adhesive. I don't want any of it coming out on the side and showing onto the vellum. Next, I'll add the snowy hillside, and there is a die included in the set for that hill and also for the houses and the trees. I cut out 3 trees, 2 larger trees and 1 smaller, and I'll adhere those on the left side of the ornament. And I have 2 of the buildings, one a house and one's a church. And I did put a black cardstock piece on the back side so you could see the windows and the door. And I'll adhere those on the right side of the ornament. Now I can put liquid adhesive on the back side of the ornament, being very careful and not to get too much since I don't want that adhesive to show through on the vellum. And I'll adhere it to the center of the card. Even with that large oval, you can still see the beautiful pattern paper peeking through the vellum. For this sentiment, I'm using another cut apart. This is May Your Christmas Be Filled with Joy. And I did put some foam dimension on the back side. And I'll adhere it to the lower portion of the card. And I like that it's a nice long sentiment. It goes all the way across the card. Using the same dark green cardstock, I'll cut a banner and add it in the upper right-hand corner. And this is the whimsical style banner that I love to cut. I do the fishtail on the bottom, then on each side I cut it in at an angle, so it's this really fun design. I'll adhere that in the upper right-hand corner using some liquid adhesive. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll add a bow using some light green and white twine. And I did cut 2 pieces, so I have a double bow. To adhere it in place, I'll put a small glue dot on the back side, and instead of adhering it at the very top of the ornament, I thought it would be fun to put it more on the left side underneath that decorative piece. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. This is definitely my favorite card from the whole set, but do let me know which card is your favorite. Now here's another look at the 18 cards I made using Paper Rose Studios Poinsettia Garden 6x6 paper collection. This is a beautiful collection. I love all the poinsettia designs, traditional Christmas colors, along with just that touch of black for elegance. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Paper Rose is located in Australia and they do ship their products internationally, but you can also purchase most of their products here in the US, and I do have links for both locations in the description box below. They sell a wide variety of different paper designs. They have lots of great dies, stamps, and other products. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.